Hello weekend people. This video is about debt, and I've just heard and read things lately where people say the obvious, and the thing that is great to say, that debt that can't be repaid won't be repaid. But then people come up with ideas of how to get out of this crisis, and often the rich get mentioned, and basically they say, well, you can default on the debt because it's the rich that own the debt. So to default on that will be all right. And the other thing is basically, if we're going to get deficits down, somebody has to pay, so it should be the rich. But really, it's this video is about who owns the debt and how much debt there is and all that sort of thing. So I'm going over to the United States, and this chart, obviously you can see top chart over at the website, total debt balance. I've used it before. I'm only using it this time because it's colourful, and the only other information I'm going to use the second chart is a bit boring, so I'm putting this one up because it's nice and colourful. And it's household debt for mortgages, revolving, auto loan, credit card, student loan and other. And basically, as you can imagine, it's mostly 74% mortgage debt, and how much the others, the revolving, auto loan, credit card, student loan, are either increasing or decreasing, and their percentages are there, and it goes back to 1999 and obviously sweeps up. I've got getting this wrong now. Does it sweep up that way? No, it does sweep up that way, isn't it? I've got to turn it round in my mind before I do the video, but I've been getting it wrong lately. Anyway, that's that. But more importantly, we go over to the boring... That chart is from the New York Fed, and this one is the Z1, the Federal Reserve Z1 counts, which is just lots and lots and lots of numbers. And if you read it, it's fascinating, because if you read both links at the website, one of Federal Reserve information, and it just reads like a shop that is its books and how well it's doing selling things, and the thing that these things have got for sale is debt. Basically, you read it through and it looks just like, how are we doing at selling debt to these type of people, this type of debt, is it going up, and how are we doing selling it? And that's all it is. It's a retail business, and this retail business is selling debt. And that's just how it looks, and this is just what these accounts are all about. So on this particular Z1, which is D3 debt outstanding by sector, I've cut it in the middle, and so we can have a look at 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 with the different sectors, which is household, business, state and local, federal and domestic financial. Now it's all very boring, but it's good to get this in your head, because there's a lots of facts that are essential for knowing, for thinking about this whole crisis. There are at least 2 or 3 very important things which I might highlight them as I say them. But anyway, here we go. The first section is household, so it's the equivalent of the colourful chart, which was the first one, and it's home mortgage, consumer credit, which is revolving, non-revolving, student loans, etc. And we're really only interested in the total, and the total is $13.5 trillion. $13.5 trillion that the banking system has sold to households. Now this is what the first thing that I want to establish as important, that it's the banking system has sold this debt to households to the tune of $13.5 trillion. Okay, now how does this come about? Where does the money come from? Just to re-establish, you go in for your mortgage or car loan. It's a collateralized loan. You pledge your house or your car, and they give you brand new money that is typed up brand new for you on that day on the computer. It's not somebody's savings, it's not deposits, nothing like that at all. It's brand new money typed into the computer that day, and then is made to exist in Here Comes the Money Land, just like that, and then put on into your account. And you sign the piece of paper, and you've collateralized it with your house or your car, or just by, it's slightly more confusing for a credit card because it's not collateralized, but that's all brand new money, just created from absolutely nowhere. Now MMT people and people like that call that horizontal money. That's what we're going to be looking at. They give you the debt, they give you the mortgage, say, or car loan. It opens up this new amount of money supply, brand new money, never been seen before, straight out of its wrapper, and it goes into your account, bam, like that. But as you pay it back, it's coming back in, coming back in, coming back in. You pay your mortgage off, or you pay your car off, it's gone, it's finished. It's opened as it's been lent out, and it's paid back, and it's closed, all gone. Open, closed, gone. It's a sealed, as long as there's no defaulting and tricky business, it's open and gone. And that's what it is. Okay, and that's going to be important when we get further into this, because there's a difference down the road. But that's what banks do. They make brand new money, and as it's paid back, that brand new money is disappeared. Okay, and so that's not owed to rich people. There's 13.5 trillion of brand new money that was just invented by banks and is slowly being paid back. And obviously there's overlaps as time goes on, and new ones and old ones, and it's a confusing looking picture, but there's 13.5 trillion of new money created to banks that is slowly being paid back. And obviously at the same time other new loans are being paid out. But that money can't be defaulted on against rich people and everything will be all right. It's just the way the system works that banks loan it into existence, and then as you pay it back it disappears. That's just the way things are. And we know about brackets, the complications of interest, which is never created, so it's a dog chasing its tail, always trying to find the interest to pay the extra and all that. But the crucial thing is it's an open and closed idea system. Okay, so that's household taken care of on this chart, and we go over to business, and we've got a total of just $11 trillion, a bit less than households, which is $13.5 trillion, and it's just about the same thing. I don't know enough to know how much of these loans are collateralized, or for our thinking at the moment, it's not actually that critical. It's not crucial. They are open and closed loans as well. They're to the banks, brand new money invented by the banks, and as the company pays the money back, that particular debt disappears, and it'll be rolling them over and taking out new and etc. But basically that $11 trillion is opened up by the banks, brand new money, and will be paid back and closed and disappeared. Yeah, but defaulting on that doesn't harm anybody. It doesn't harm rich people. That's not if you think that defaulting on loans, businesses or households defaulting on loans is only harming rich people, that's no way of thinking about it. It doesn't make sense. So that's 23.5, 24, $25 trillion of that sort of debt. Now we go over state and local governments and federal government. Now on this Z1, they're always behind on the federal government. They've only got it down as 9 trillion of debt. Now I don't know how they're accounting. Doesn't account for what we know it to be, which is about 13 trillion. Let's just say they're a bit behind. I don't know what the exact reason is, but I'll use call it 10 trillion or something. And there's 2.4 trillion of state and local government. So let's say between them it's 15 trillion, because we know the federal debt in the US is getting up to 14 trillion now. So with state and local it's 15. So we've got household at 13.5, business at 11, and 15 for state and local. State, local and federal. That is slightly different. That is bonds that have been sold. So that's a different matter. That's an exchange of different types of money. A bond is money, and money is money, and they're just exchanged. Now I don't want to get too much into that. Down on the Z1s, I did look further down to see if I could find how much was in pension schemes, and it's hard to judge, but I think there's about $7 trillion of US pension schemes that I could find there. There's probably a lot more that wasn't in the books. So of that, say, state, of the federal government, I think it's 45%, call it 50%, and we'll move the thing about a bit. 50% of the federal debt is now owned by foreigners. So if we're calling it 14 trillion, call it 6 trillion that's owned by foreigners, and 8 is local, within the country. So say it's 10 owned in the country by the United States citizens of state, local and federal debt. Say it's 10. I found, say, 7 of pension funds. So 7 of that 10 is owed to pension funds for the people of the United States. So defaulting on that federal, local debt would be 7/10 hitting pension funds. Now, there's 3/10 that presumably is owned by the rich people, that it's not their pension, it's just their saving scheme or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what the numbers are. But defaulting on that, the general gist is the people that you'll be hurting are the people that have worked and have IRAs, pension schemes, all that sort of thing. Okay, so defaulting on that isn't very clever if you think that you're just defaulting to rich people, and it's only rich people who's going to be harmed. It's your neighbours and yourself that's going to be harmed. Right, now I'll just go on to another thing which touches on it, obviously, which is what the MMT, that type of person, calls vertical debt. Now, I think that as I say, 45% of the federal debt is owned by foreigners. China is the top one of those. I think in second position is the Federal Reserve, and then you get more foreigners. I think Japan's in third place, but the Federal Reserve is actually second in that list, but they're obviously not foreigners. They are representing maybe that makes up the extra of maybe the Federal Reserve number isn't in there. I'm not sure how it works, but when the Federal Reserve buys United States Treasury debt, it makes brand new money. So it does one of these brand new digital money, bong, like, okay, and buys treasury debt, buys treasuries, okay, and that is vertical debt, because the money, the Fed money, goes out into the world and it's open and nobody pays it back. It's open. It's not somebody's going to pay it back and it closes like a mortgage or a car loan. It's always open. Now, the way that the Federal Reserve closes that up, if it wants to, sterilizes it, is by doing the reverse of the open market operation, by the money's out there and they've got the treasuries now. They've bought the treasuries, the money is in the market. They've got to reverse that and get the market to buy the treasuries. And then when the money's come back to the Fed, because they've given out the treasuries now, the money's come into the Fed, they can digitally tear it up and close that up. And then that has been sterilized. But that's the only way they can do it. Until they do that reverse open market operation and get the market to buy the treasuries off them, get the money in and digitally tear it up, that money is out there. Do you dig? It's out there and it's not being reduced. So the problem arises, and the problem arises for the Federal Reserve, if down the road inflation takes hold, for example. What they'd want to do is reduce the amount of money out there by selling treasuries into the market. They sell the treasuries into the market, suck the money out of the system, and then digitally tear it up to kind of calm inflation, lowering the money supply. Yeah, I'll just let the cat out. Hang on. You go, Poppy. Go on. But the problem arises, actually what's happening, the problem will arise. Is this too technical for this, or too difficult for this video? What will arise is, perhaps as time goes on and inflation starts taking hold, if that happens, people have been flooding into bonds, into treasuries. They've bought treasuries at a low price. When the price is low, no, the price is high and the interest rate's low at the moment. So the price is high and the interest rate's low. But inflation starts kicking in and people realize that they've bought a bond for, say, 10 years and they're only going to get 2% interest, but inflation, say, goes to 4%. They realize, well, that bond is just going to be losing me 2% a year. So they'll want to sell it. And as they want to sell it, more and people like them, sale and demand will push the price down and keep going down. The price of their bonds is going down. They can sell them before their term ends, but the price is going down because everybody's seeing that it's best to sell before the market's flooded with these things. So the market's selling these treasuries onto people when inflation's rising. So they're selling, the price is going down and the interest rate's going up. But at this time, what the Fed has to do to get interest rates down is to sell the treasuries that it's got now into the market, get the money and digitally tear it up. So they also will come into the market on the selling side, driving the price down even further and driving the interest rate up even further. This is the Fed's real calamitous quandary that they just can't get round. That if that sort of thing happens, the only thing that they can do to keep interest rate down, because everyone knows interest rates have got to stay down because people have got all these debts and they want to keep the interest rates down on these debts, rolling them over and whatever. The Fed then is obliged not to sterilize the money that they've opened up by being second behind China, and they've got to maybe even buy more. But that should fuel more inflation. This is the trap that the Fed's found itself in. But it's hard to explain, and I might not have done a very good job of it because it's hard. I always get mixed up with price going up. But basically it's a seesaw. If the price of bonds goes up, the interest rate goes down. The price goes down, the interest rate goes up. And you've got to imagine that the Fed, to sterilize, has got to either got treasuries or it's got money. And it's always just digital invented money. And it either buys the treasuries. Oh, I'll get the phone now. You've got it anyway. So I'll leave you with you. But the overall effect of this video is to say that defaulting on debt, you're not necessarily going to be hitting just rich people. Okay, it's a much more complicated idea. Okay, leave it with you. Thanks. Bye.